What's up, Unlocking Your Inner Strength listeners? How would you like to know how to use a timer app correctly and how long it should be set for to keep your creative powers at peak force? Well, I have good news for you. I've put together a special report showing you how to do this. Normally it's $45, but since you're a loyal listener of the show, you can get it for only $10 at unlockingyourinnerstrength.com/time.
You're listening to The Inner Strength Show. If you want to step into your greatness, you've come to the right place. Here is your host, the human strength expert, Kyle Newell.
What's up, everybody? It's Kyle once again from Unlocking Your Inner Strength and Newell Strength with episode number 72, coming at you from Arizona. You can see the hotel behind me. And if you're listening to the recording of the podcast, you might notice it's been a little different lately. I've been streaming it live. Today's actually a Sunday. I'm doing it before I fly out. And, been kind of living by one of the principles that I believe in, which is leveraging my time. So if I'm putting out information, I want it to be in more than just one place. I want people to have access to it in more than just one place. Anyhow, if you've listen to the podcast, please remember to leave a review on iTunes. Now let's get into today. So what am I doing out here in Arizona? I'm actually at a residential assisted living seminar, which is very interesting, something I wanted to get into. I started getting into real estate with one of my brothers, Shane, not too long ago. And it's something we'll probably bring my other brothers in on if they want. But as I always do, I believe if you're trying to learn from somebody, you should go directly to the source. If you're trying to learn something, I should say. So we're out here, and we talked to some gentlemen that have been to the national convention, that met some other people that have been to this 3 times. They're invested into the coaching program, which sounds really cool. It's a sizable investment. It's $30,000. And the guy said, this couple that has been through this, and there was more than just one person like that, or more than one couple, they haven't done anything yet. 3 years into it, and they have not made any moves. And that's one of the reasons I always say that there's no such thing as competition, because so few people are actually going to take action in life and are actually going to step forward in life. And it's something we all struggle with. So the feeling of overwhelm that we get, it's not about our to-do list. It's about how we're thinking about our to-do list. You can only do one thing at a time. You can't multitask as much as you think you can. What happens, and the analogy I give, right? So the brain has a metabolism, just like the body. It's all one and the same. So if I told you to run 100 yards straight, that's not that hard for most people. If I said to run 100 yards, but let's do it in 10-yard shuttles, so 10 yards and back 5 times. That one is going to be much harder because you have to constantly stop and start again, which is very taxing on the metabolic machinery of your body. So your brain's the same way. So most people have this big to-do list, or let's say, for the example, with opening the second location of Newell Strength, there's a lot of moving pieces that have to go into that. Now, every time I catch myself thinking about the end game, I can get overwhelmed very easily and get anxious. So I have to bring it back to today. What's the next step you have to do? And the presenter, the teacher at this seminar, Gene, put up a slide the other day that said that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Lao Tzu, very famous quote, but it's so true. If we think too far out into the future, you're going to go into freeze mode. The anxiety gap grows, right? Because your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It needs prediction and response, and that's the only way it can move forward. As soon as we take away the pattern, right? There's a lack of clarity. Lack of clarity causes the brain to go into a stress response. So you always have to go back to what is the next step. What is the next step? So I had a call with Matt Fury the other day. Matt's a gentleman that coaches me. He's a very unique mind and has had a lot of success in his life. And we were talking about goals, and he said, well, where are you getting caught up? I said, well, I've stopped writing them down like I used to. So we went through it, and we went through all the accomplishments I've had this year, just like you've had. that I don't even look at as goals, right? Putting food on the table, paying rent, making payroll every single time, having a business that's growing, and things of these natures, right? Being able to be home with the boys pretty much whenever I want. But things like that are things that we overlook. Now, if we think about goals, right? I wrote down my goals at the beginning of or the end of last year, right? And I think it's good to write them down and put them somewhere you can see them. And if you put them somewhere where you can see them, you don't have to write them down again every day, because the idea of writing them down is just to wire it deeper into your brain and constantly remind yourself of what you're trying to do. So one of my physical goals for this year, which is coming up to an end, was to bench press 400 pounds. I wrote it down, and Matt said, well, how often did you think about it? I said, well, every time I did visualization, which was almost every day, I visualized it. I visualized the weight going up smoothly. I visualized, the emotion that would come with it, giving the fist pump. Okay, yeah, I got it. So I visualized all this stuff, right? But how much time did I actually put into it? Was it multiple hours every single day on my bench press? No. It was maybe an hour to 90 minutes per week that went into my upper body training, specifically focused at increasing my bench press. Now, you could add in things like nutrition, but that stuff I was doing already. So it wasn't like, as you can tell, we're right next to the airport, but it wasn't like this was all consuming, right? And my previous best bench press was 370 pounds a couple of years ago. So I had 30 pounds to go. So Matt said, well, if you approached it where you had to gain just 1% of strength per month, you'd get there. So we broke it down. So that first month, that says 4 pounds, right? I'm 374, then 378, then 382. And I said, Matt, I started chuckling. He said, what's that? I said, that's actually pretty much the way it happened. And it wasn't what I'd set out to do. It was just a little bit better each time. Okay, you benched 380 last time. Let's try to get 385. And that was it. It's the same way in life. So it's a single step. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. Just break it down to what's the next step. That's where people get caught up, and that's why there's no such thing as competition, because people cannot get out of their own way. Even here at this seminar, people are asking the most asinine questions that have nothing to do with the process. So that's my rant about that. And as I've been doing in all the recent episodes, I'm going to give you a piece of mindset like that first before I go into fitness or whatever else I'm going to talk about. So, and it all ties together.
What's up, Unlocking Your Inner Strength listeners? How would you like to know how to use a timer app correctly and how long it should be set for to keep your creative powers at peak force? Well, I have good news for you. I put together a special report showing you how to do this. Normally it's $45, but since you're a loyal listener of the show, you can get it for only $10 at unlockingyourinnerstrength.com/time.
Now, the second thing was fitness, where most people go wrong. Remember, your brain needs to know what it's trying to do. It needs clarity. Okay, so most people have a default definition of health and fitness. For most people, that is, if they don't think of it themselves, it's losing weight, it's having a six-pack, it's something along those lines, right? And it might not mean much. So I always tell people, what if you lost weight and you do it the wrong way like most people do and your energy tanks? Is that healthy for you? Is that your definition of health? Well, no. Okay. Most people's definition, for example, of happiness is more money. That's the default if they don't take time to think about it. Money is a byproduct, and money is great to have, but it's a byproduct, right? If I gave you $1 billion and I secluded you on an island by yourself for the rest of your life, are you going to be happy? No, you're missing out on a lot of components of happiness. And by the way, one of the key things for happiness that I see across most definitions of people that I do mind mapping with is this element of freedom. Okay, now freedom ties back into your definition of health. So most people are imprisoned, like I was for years with health, with sticking to these crazy diets. I used to bring Tupperware around. I thought it was hardcore when I was a bodybuilder, and just stupid stuff that was impossible to stick with. And that, let's say I was on vacation, or let's say I went out to eat with my buddies. I would only order salmon and broccoli or chicken and broccoli or something where it was just not enjoyable, right? For what I was actually, I missed out on a lot, let me put it that way. So it took me a long time. Last time I competed in bodybuilding was 2014, and I did a lot of work with my therapist on it. We knew that it might put me into a bad spot again. And it did, even with all my knowledge of the brain and the process, meaning that I fell back into this trap of confusing my body image with my self-image. And I went into a funk after the show because First of all, my energy was terrible leading up to the show because I was dieting so hard. And I get that. That's part of the process. We get ready for a bodybuilding show. But after the show, I wanted to maintain this look that was not realistic for me. And it wasn't until a couple months later that I'd come off testosterone, right? Because Devin wanted to get pregnant with Munchie, our first child. We didn't know he was going to be Munchie, obviously. But testosterone's a male birth control. So I came off of that at the end of the summer. So I went from bodybuilding shape to coming off testosterone. So that was already going to be a little tricky for me because testosterone makes me feel better, right? And shortly thereafter, that November, I blew out my right patellar tendon and a bunch of other stuff in my right knee. So I went from coming off testosterone to blowing out my right knee. And then I said, this is the second time this happened to one of my knees. I said, I'm not going to go to the gym until I can drive there myself. Because the time before, it took me 3 months before I was able to drive because I couldn't bend my leg because of this, just a lot of stuff. But so then I started shrinking. So I went from peak physical condition to shrinking. Me and Devin went away for the night, and I was getting dressed after I'd had my knee surgery about a month after. And she says, I've never been this attracted to you in my life. And I said, what do you mean? Look at me. I lost all my muscle. I was soft. She goes, no, but you're free. You can go out and have a burger with me tonight. You can go have a beer and not stress it. And something clicked when she said that. And I went back and evaluated, and this kind of coincided with right when I was being taught mind mapping from Dax Moy. And I said, my definition of health really had nothing to do with how much body fat I had or how much I weighed. This is what I was led to believe through bodybuilding, right? So I went back and evaluated. I said, okay, my definition of health is having high energy levels, to be strong, to be able to protect my family, to have a great mindset, to be pain-free with my joints, be able to move through a full range of motion. And that was it really, right? So the reason I'm thinking of this lately is I've lost a lot of muscle lately because I've been doing jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. My training is differently. I can see that my arms are much smaller. I've lost probably, since Devin was pregnant with Colt, I've lost almost 20 pounds, not intentionally, and I don't think I was fat. I was 260, but I was pretty solid. So down to about 240, and I'm just kind of seeing everything shrink a little bit, and I'm okay with that. Okay, I'm okay with that because my definition has nothing to do with what I look like, right? It's how do I perform? What's my energy? Energy is probably the biggest one to me because energy, the two greatest assets that we have are your confidence and your energy. So everything I try to do with my health has to do with really tying into my energy and my confidence because that's going to allow me to be the dad, the husband, the individual, the entrepreneur, the leader that I want to be. In short, come up with your definition of health. What does it mean to you? And then how do we go about that? How do we go about achieving that? Okay, it's always going to lead to something deeper like happiness and freedom as well, right? If it is you want to lose weight, nothing wrong with that. But what's the real reason you want to lose weight? What's the real reason you want to do that? What's the real reason you want to do that? And keep going down the hole and figure out how you get there. I want to be able to play with my grandkids and great-grandkids when I'm 95 years old. And so everything we do now, in my opinion, should be towards that. Why would we train for something different now? Train for the longevity and the energy. So that's what I got today. Thanks, Dave. My little brother from my fraternity says I'm still astonishingly handsome. But I don't know about that. But anyway, that's what I got for this episode, number 72, Unlocking Your Inner Strength. Once again, please share this with somebody that can use a positive message on mindset and success. We all struggle with that, right? We need to hear this stuff constantly. And please share it with somebody that's looking for a different perspective on health. And if you haven't already left a review on iTunes, please do so. That helps me out a lot. I appreciate you tuning in. I'll be back next week for episode number 73. So amazing. We've already done 72 episodes, but I've been really enjoying it. And thanks, Paul. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Ramesh, for tuning in live. And hopefully you catch the recording, or you can go back on the Facebook public profile page of Kyle Newell, fitness expert, and watch it. So that's all I got for this week. Peace.
You've been listening to The Inner Strength Show. If you enjoyed the show, remember to subscribe, rate, and review us in iTunes.